Hello and welcome, Illumineers. Today we're going to go over all the starter decks that have come out so far from most of the tournaments we've seen. You buy in, get a starter deck, and you play with that deck. Go over all the cards you're going to get and the basic strategies of those decks. Thank you again for coming and watching another one of our videos. We really appreciate the support. It would really help us out, of course, if you like and subscribe like everyone says, and leave a comment if you have any questions or have any ideas to share specifically about these starter decks. So let's jump right into that first starter deck with the Sapphire Steel Control.
In the Sapphire and Steel Control deck, you will be receiving 49 inkable cards, 11 non-inkable cards, with 40 characters, 10 actions, 3 songs, and 7 items, with an average ink cost of 2.6. Your cover foil cards are Aurora, Dreaming Guardian, and Simba, Returned King. The one-drop characters that you will receive are 2 Flounder, Voice of the Reason, 3 Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist, and 2 Goons, Maleficent Underlings.
Okay, to note about these one-drop characters, all of them are inkable. So inkable, inkwellable. We're going to go with inkable. I'm going to say inkable a bunch of times in this. That means that these cards have the inkwell symbol. They can be added to your inkwell. Okay, so all of them are inkable. All of them can quest for 1 lore. Captain Hook gives himself a little bit of a bonus here by having his challenger, making him a little bit more of a combat threat. Goons are your basic vanilla card, and then actually Flounder has been argued by some to be the greatest card in the game, so do with that what you will.
Yeah, I think I may be coming down with something.
Let's take a look at the 2-drops.
The 2-drop characters that you'll be receiving are 3 Aurora, Regal Princess, 2 Grandma Tala, Storyteller, and 2 Prince Eric, Dashing and Brave.
So again, all of these are inkable. Here we have Aurora questing for 2, whereas Grandma and Prince Eric only quest for 1. The difference here, though, is Prince Eric, he's going to give you that utility early game to, again, make it a little easier to challenge. Same with Captain Hook in the 1-drop slot. Grandma Tala, she is one that you're going to want to have right away. You want to get her out. You don't want to put her in the inkwell because she can end up there later. If you get her, you want to play her. You want to challenge with her if you can. Quest with her if you can't challenge. Hopefully, they challenge into her, or your opponent quests against you. Make sure she's dead.
You're a long ways past the reef.
She gets in that 1 damage, and she still ends up in the inkwell for you. So, pretty good card. Now let's take a look at the 3-drops.
The 3-drop characters that you'll receive are 3 Jasmine Disguised, 3 Mickey Mouse Detective, 2 Hercules True Hero, and 2 Kristoff Official Ice Maker.
All of these are inkable except for Mickey, but Mickey comes in and counteracts his in-inkability by allowing you to put the top card of your library directly into your inkwell. Little side note here, you can't look at that card. You just take whatever's on top and it goes straight into the inkwell. Jasmine feels kind of like a filler card. I mean, she fills that slot. You can add her to the inkwell if you need to. She also quests for 2 lore, which I guess isn't bad at the 3-drop slot. Hercules
Honey, you mean Hercules?
is going to actually come in and be pretty utility for you at this ink cost. With his bodyguard ability, it actually helps a lot with your early questers to make sure they don't die, except for Grandma, of course. You want her to die. But he can come in and protect, like let's say you had a Jasmine out and you weren't able to add her to the inkwell. He can come in with his bodyguard ability. You're able to quest with her a lot more certainty that you're going to be okay and she's not going to die. You're going to get your 2 lore, again next turn. And then Hercules as a 3/3 is a solid body. Usually if they have that extra ability on there, it'll take away some of either their strength or willpower. But I mean, he still comes in at a 3/3 with that bodyguard ability. Additionally, with Hercules, if you get him in the late game too, he can still be helpful by playing him out and using his bodyguard, because if you're you're to the point where you need your big drops to stick around and really get that lore that you're trying to quest for late game, he's able to protect those and make sure you get at least another turn collecting that large sum of lore. Now let's go on to the 4-drops.
Now the 4-drop characters that you'll be getting are 3 Aurora Briar Rose and 3 Maleficent Sinister Visitor.
Okay, so both of these are inkable, which is great to have. Aurora has really good survivability with that 5 willpower. It's a lot more than you think, especially playing against the other starter decks. She also gives you a lot more control over the board by giving -2 strength. That can actually add up pretty good too, so then one of your smaller characters or whoever you really want to challenge with, it allows them to survive by taking away the strength from your opponent's character. Maleficent seems pretty vanilla, just in there to quest for some lore and really fill in at the 4-drop slot. Now let's look at our 5-drops.
The 5-drop characters in this deck that you'll receive are 1 Aurora Dreaming Guardian, 1 Maleficent Uninvited, 2 Beast Hard-Headed, and 2 Simba Rightful Heir.
So all of these can be added to your inkwell, except for Simba. Not having Simba be able to do that is actually okay, because if you play him out on this turn, then you'll be able to shift into your bigger Simba later, which, spoiler alert, I mean he's on the cover of the box. You're going to have another Simba in here. You're going to be able to use this smaller symbol to shift on top of. So maybe get like a turn in quest with some lore, get him out a turn early, not have to deal with the ink drying. Aurora's shift ability makes her a lot easier to play in this spot, especially having 2 different Auroras in the deck that she can shift onto. Also, her giving every other character ward is a semi-powerful thing. It's hard to say, at least against the starter decks, because there's maybe in Emerald and Ruby, there's a good amount of spot removal, but in the other one, there's not as much, and in a mirror match, I guess, kind of. So she is a good card, don't get me wrong. I just think she's more specific for certain situations, but again, she does quest for good lore. Maleficent is the one you want out. She is questing Powerhouse, questing for 3 lore. That 3 every turn really does add up, and she can really protect herself by having 6 willpower. Beast, I've had mixed feelings about. So he can, in theory, be a powerful card, but it's just so specific to items. And through the couple tournaments and little bit of gameplay that we've done so far, items aren't a common thing. Even though there are some in the starter decks, not a lot of people are playing the items. I don't know why. I don't know if they're just like concerned about how exactly the mechanics of the items work. We just haven't seen a lot of playing it. Moving forward, as people like self-brew, I know there's a pretty solid Sapphire, and I think Sapphire Steel or Sapphire Amber deck that is like item centered. And if you play against that deck, Beast would be amazing against it. I just haven't seen a lot of it yet, so I don't know how powerful he's going to be. Now let's go on to our 6, 7, and 8 drops.
And finally, the 6, 7, and 8 drop characters that you'll receive in this deck are 2 Mufasa, King of the Pride Lands, 1 Scar, Mastermind, 1 Simba, Returned King, and 1 Maui, Demigod.
All of them can go into your inkwell, so if you draw into them in your opening hand, your mulligan doesn't go well and you still have them. That's a nice thing, so they're not just sitting there taking up space. All of them are really your late game finishers. Scar can come in and give -5 to an opponent's character, which means you're going to get basically a free kill as long as you have someone with enough strength to go against them. Simba comes in and he shifts onto your other Simba. He has the ability to get evasion during your turn, which was a big thing in the tournaments and little gameplay we've seen so far, is that when you're playing Ruby Emerald, if you don't have something to deal with the evasion, you're screwed. So by giving himself that evasion and Challenger +4, he's going to be able to take out a lot of those threats and be able to quest if there, I guess, aren't any threats to take out. Maui is there just to really finish the game.
What can I say except you're welcome?
He quests for a bunch. He has a bunch of strength, a bunch of willpower. He's really your finisher. Granted, there's only one, so it could be tough to get to, but I mean, there's enough of these high-end cards. I'll go over in the strategy at the end, but yeah, Maui is really the epitome of your late game strategy. All right, now let's take a look at all the actions.
Now let's go over the action cards that you'll get. You're going to get 3 Develop Your Brain, 3 Fire the Cannons, 2 Ransack, and 3 Smash.
All of these are inkable, except for Fire the Cannons. All of them cost less than 3 ink. This allows you to, maybe late game if you don't have any of your bombs, play an action or 2, and then also play a character, play an action and a character, play 2 actions. It could really help you develop into that late game stuff when you've ramped into the ink. Develop Your Brain allows you to filter out some cards that you don't want. It allows you to really make sure that you're getting the draws and you're getting into that late game stuff. Only costing 1 ink is, of course, a great added feature to it. Fire the Cannons is great removal, don't get me wrong, but I think what would have made it even better is having the right Captain Hook in this deck.
Just wait till Peter gets free, then you'll be sorry, Hook!
Wait, you call me this too? Is this a universal thing? How long have people been calling me this?
Well, isn't that your name? Hook?
No! It's Johnson!
There is the rare or super rare Captain Hook that allows you to get your Fire the Cannons back. Had he been added into this, I definitely think that would have made it stronger and made Fire the Cannons more desirable. They are still good removal, just not having the ability to add them to your inkwell, of course, takes away. Especially when you have Smash in the deck as well. Granted, it's a little more expensive, but you deal 3 damage instead, and you can still add it to the inkwell. Ransack seems like an okay card. It's like a filter card. You get 2, lose 2, so it allows you again to get into that late game stuff or get rid of some stuff that isn't super helpful right now. I just think it would have been a little bit better if you got to draw 2, discard 1, and still giving you that advantage instead of just a filter. Now let's get into the songs and the items.
The songs and items in this deck that you'll receive are 2 One Jump Ahead, 1 Grab Your Swords, 2 Magic Golden Flower, 3 Coconut Baskets, and 2 Frying Pan.
So none of these songs are inkable. All of the items are. One Jump Ahead makes up for its inability to be added to the inkwell by just being your basic ramp card, similar to what Mickey does. Grab Your Swords is great for the really aggro decks. Dealing 2 damage to all of your opponent's characters can be a lot, especially against the Amber Amethyst deck that runs so many characters that are at 1 or 2 willpower. Magic Golden Flower and Coconut Baskets are really just utility cards that are going to allow you to prolong the life, I suppose, of your big bombs at the end, or at least give your early game cards that ability to survive as well, to at least make it to the point where you get to put out your big bombs. And then Frying Pan is tough to judge. It feels like it could be a bit of a filler card.
Alone at last.
I mean, it could also be very powerful in certain situations. Let's say you're playing against Ruby Emerald. They could have their Aladdin Heroic Outlaw out, and forcing him to not be able to challenge is actually a very powerful thing. That's it for all the cards, so let's dive into some strategy ideas, strategy tips, I guess. The first main theme to go over is the control aspect of this deck. This comes through your stabilizers in removing damage from your characters. It comes through cards like Develop Your Brain, where you're filtering or ransack. It comes through playing characters and putting characters onto the board that are there probably to die, potentially taking out some of their characters, be it Grammatala or Hercules.
Okay. Well, then head on back.
Also, having so much removal and the board wipe really add to that control theme with Smash and with Fire the Cannons and Grab Your Swords. That really adds to the overall control. Get rid of their characters, potentially put your characters out there to die, control your draws, and then put out big things at the end. Another theme to this is the ramp theme. That comes through Mickey, that comes through One Jump Ahead, through Grammatala. By having all these specific cards that are going to add to your inkwell, and the cards in your hand that you're just going to put straight into your inkwell, it allows you to get to those larger cards at the end a lot faster, and that is what a ramp theme is. So these two themes actually play into each other pretty well. By ramping, you're able to play more and control more until you get to the big characters. What you need to do early game is make sure you're making that ramping a priority. It may seem more desirable to try and get like a lot of characters out early, but in the end what you want to really make sure you do, especially with early game characters, is get Grammatala out. You really want her out there because she's going to aid in the ramping, she's going to help you control, and then try and get to those larger cards as quick as you can. If you're mulliganing out, make sure that you are still keeping cards that are going to allow you that ramp ability, maybe a removal or 2 cards you know you're going to be able to add to your inkwell, and then make sure you're able to get into those large cards. If you don't have them in your starting hand, make sure you have like Develop Your Brain as a way to get and ensure that your draws are going to be safe, or your draws are going to be prepared to get towards those giant creatures at the end after you have prioritized ramping into them. Because let's say you ramp, you don't have any ways to filter your draws, and then you're just sitting there with a bunch of ink and nothing to play. Hopefully all of that makes sense to you. If you have any questions, if you want to know what you want to swap out or add into this deck, or I guess just any questions about Lorcana in general, please leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the Ruby Emerald and the Amber and Amethyst. See you later.